So I've been taking a look at upcoming space games and I've noticed something very interesting, which kind of gives us a different direction in where the genre is heading. There's a new wave of space games arriving right now and in the not too distant future, and they're not really interested in giving you the vast empty sandbox to drift through. What they want is to actually have you running something, to operate a corporation, to command a warship, and to manage every single system on the vessel you're responsible for. Now this is happening across multiple titles from different studios, and they're all happening at roughly the same time. And this means that the setting of space is becoming far more dynamic and it's gaining a lot more depth than what we've seen up to this point. I'm very happy to see this, and I suspect a lot of you are too. Today then, I've got 4 games that I think really represent where the genre is heading, and one of them I think is going to especially stand out to you. Do keep an eye out for that. So let's start with Space Rain. This has now hit a full 1.0 release back in March. It's developed by Propulsive Games, and it's a title that really does try to do something quite ambitious. So at its core, this is a game about representing a private corporation in the near future. And this is where rival companies are locked in constant conflict over resource-rich sectors of space. And rather than settling on one playstyle, it layers several of them into a single interconnected experience. So you can fly agile fighters from inside the first-person cockpit, and that's really nice on its own. Of course, we all like that. The weapons have a lot of weight to them, and you've got rapid repeaters, you've got railguns, and much more. But then you can switch to controlling a larger capital ship in third person, and this is where the scale of engagement changes entirely. And on top of that, you can do a bit more. You can pull back further onto an RTS-style tactical view, and here you're issuing orders to your entire fleet ship by ship, and you're managing positions and coordinating your forces across the entire battlefield. And what really stands out to me about this is the fact that with Space Rain, you're existing on more than just one level. In other words, you're both a commander and a pilot. You're a commander of an entire fleet, as well as a pilot of whichever ship you decide to step into. And if we take a step back from that, yet another layer, you're also the person in charge of what the corporation invests in and where it fights next. And for me, this really takes advantage of the setting up there in space. Instead of just exploring or fighting as a pilot, you're stepping back and you're threading a line through pretty much every different activity within that environment. Now, Dreadnought Tartarus is a very interesting take, and this is the one that really stood out to me. I think it might well do it to you as well. The visuals here are absolutely breathtaking, not in the stunning best graphical engine ever sense, but in the stylized approach that they're actually taking here. This really does stand out. So it takes on the operational thinking that we discussed in Space Rain, and it focuses all of that into a single colossal machine. And that means you command one ship, the Tartarus. And that's where things get really interesting, because this goes far beyond being a frigate or a fighter. You're actually in control of a city-sized battleship, and the war that surrounds that Tartarus, the battleship, is the focus of the entire game. Your goal then is to ensure you can get the Tartarus to its destination and achieve its objectives. That means you're planning the routes across a strategic campaign map, you're selecting priority targets, you're choosing whether to take a safer path or perhaps push through a high-risk zone for a greater reward. And even more importantly, you're configuring the ship itself along the way. And yes, that means the Tartarus is indeed modular. You can customize its hull structures and armor plating. You can fit different configurations of main cannons, long-range missiles, and experimental super weapons. You can even deploy carrier-based fighters and support drones. And every one of these decisions directly shapes how the battle performs. It affects the combat effectiveness, it affects the cruising speed, the ship's ability to dominate different types of encounters. Essentially, you've got a lot of control over how things play out, and your decisions will have a dramatic effect on this. Now, throughout this video, you're probably starting to notice there is a through line, and that is the idea of control, the idea of depth, the idea of management, and is threaded through these different games. We've seen this in Space Rain, and we see it now in Dreadnought Tartarus. Very different games, but there is this strong theme there. And it's something that has been missing from space games for a very long time, and it's really nice to see it here. Now, the last game I want to talk about today is NTL, No Time Left. And yes, I have spoken about this before, but we're looking at it again alongside everything else on this video because there is that through line. And it fits very precisely here into this picture because it really does deserve another mention. So what is No Time Left? Well, it's a 3D capital ship roguelike, and it's built on a foundation that many of you will recognise immediately. It takes a core idea of FTL, faster than light, and reimagines it into full 360 degree combat as well as Newtonian physics. So what you've got here is a situation where you're commanding a starship through a galaxy spanning conspiracy. And at any given moment, you're managing the power distribution, shield allocation, weapon systems, and support modules all simultaneously. Also, the game does run in real time, but there's a tactical pause that lets you drop in, assess the situation, and prioritise targets. Also means you can line up broadsides, triage incoming damage before unpausing and getting back into the action. And that means you get a whole rhythm of tension, and that's really quite effective. You get a burst of chaos that's broken by moments of really nice places where you've got to plan your decision making about what's actually going on here. Another nice touch that I really like is the way the environments affect everything in NTL as well. And that, as an example, magnetars will disable your unshielded systems. Solar flares can ignite fires across your ship, and this means you might need to manage your fire alongside the combat as well. Get too near a black hole and this can cause sustained damage with no direct defense against that. So all of these hazards, they really do affect how you approach every single engagement, because not only do you have to plan to deal with what's going on with enemy ships or things like that, whatever objective you're confronting, but you also have to deal with the environment itself, and this can force you into adapting your loadout or your tactics along the way. Pretty much sounds like this is going to be a constant ongoing battle. And then there's another element here, which of course is ship progression. And that means you can carry the ship towards your own sense of playstyle. And that takes us rather neatly onto Solar Expanse. This enters early access in April the 9th, and it takes the whole operational approach that we've been discussing here and applies it to something with no weapons at all. And yet, even though it's not a combat game, it's still worth sticking with, because there's a lot of high pressure here, a lot of engagement, and a lot of things that you may well find very interesting. As such, you lead one of the early 21st century's space exploration companies. Your job is to reach the planets, moons, and asteroids of the solar system in order to mine and colonize them. And the game takes this logistics, it takes all of that, what you're actually doing, all very, very seriously. According to the Steam page then, every celestial body in the game is in constant motion, much as we would see in the real star system, the real solar system. And that means planning a mission is very difficult, because you can't just select a destination and fly straight there. You need to actually account for orbital positions, optimize launch windows, and factor in gravity assists to extend your reach across space. And if you get the timing wrong, much as you may have noticed in things like Kerbal Space Program, then things don't go quite as planned, and that also means costs can spiral. Get it right, however, and yeah, you never know, you get a slingshot of your mission far beyond what your budget may have otherwise have allowed. So this does have a broader economic layer as well in the game, because you're competing with rival corporations for contracts and resources. That means balancing the cost of rocket flights against the value of what you're bringing back home. And over time, you're establishing permanent bases. You've got fuel stations, you've got launch sites, space capsules, entire cities, and much more. And so the scale expands from there. This, again, is all about control, it's all about management, it's all about that through line of new depth that we're seeing in these games in a space-themed setting, whether it's spaceships or whether it's full-on corporate control like this one. This is all connected to the future plans for the game. And ultimately, that means what starts as a near-future asteroid mining game eventually spans centuries, and that pushes you outwards to terraforming. And yes, it leads to interstellar colony ships and objectives like reaching the Alpha Centauri star system, and perhaps even the TRAPPIST itself. So there we have it. We got 4 games, all from different studios, all from very different countries, different subgenres entirely. One blends cockpit combat with fleet command and corporate warfare. Another focuses entirely on one colossal evolving battleship. The third turns space exploration into pure operational logistics, and all of that without a single weapon in sight. And then we got the 4th game, which takes the roguelike format and fills it with all these really interesting systems, as well as a real sense of consequence. But the through line here, the thing that really makes me feel that space games are taking on this really new direction, is they all share something, and that is the notion that they all want you to feel the weight of what you're actually doing in the game. And to me, that feels like the direction really worth paying attention to. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. As always, thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. Do check out the other one on the screen right here. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.